Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trev Foreman. We got Cody Craig with us. Cody, welcome.
Thank you.
And we are reviewing the Bing Derringer model. This is a 9.6. We got dimensions on here anywhere, Cody? Or are they just going stock 9.6? 9.6, stock dimensions. Let's dig into the review. Cody, what do you got to give to us on this board?
My take on this is it's more of like a modern pig nose rider. But when I say pig, it's not too piggy as far as rails go. It's kind of thinned out in the tail for turning, and it's got some nice lift in the nose. So good nose rider, turns well, paddles good. Yeah, kind of chiseled out.
Yeah, so like for those of you that don't know, pig translates to wide point back, so you can tell much narrower nose, wide point back. When you look on Bing's website, they're recommending this board, intermediate to advanced longboarders that want to advance their nose riding and like longboard surfing. When Cody and I were like talking about like this board, like kind of what separates this thing from like a beginner longboard or a novice longboard. And the thing is that looking at it, it's pretty, I wouldn't say it's aggressive, but it's definitely more slanted towards the experienced longboarder. Mm-hmm. It's really leaned out. Like if you look at the thickness on it, it's not very thick. And it's also really foiled out on the rails. A little bit narrower and wide point back, narrower nose. All those things are going to translate into a board that is going to be a little bit harder for a novice to ride, but intermediate to advanced, like surfers like Cody or below Cody in ability level are going to be able to push this thing a lot harder and at higher speeds and like with more confidence.
Yeah, I think it's a good entry level to intermediate longboard if you want to progress in nose riding and really cross-stepping your board. Maybe not for the heavier days here, but this summer, I mean, even when it was 6 foot, or 5 feet, it wasn't like super top to bottom. So longboard was kind of the call if you wanted to catch a lot of waves in a short amount of time. This is kind of a good go-to board.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, like talking with Matt Calvani, the designer and shaper of this board, in the rockers, like because the two new boards from Bing this year, the Aussie Square, which we reviewed with Misty Elder, one of our team riders, and that board was designed like specifically for beach breaks and is also like a newer, thinner style longboard, like made to excel in those type of conditions. This board has a little bit flatter rocker compared to the Aussie Square, so that's going to give it more glide. Like, what did that translate to, like in those softer conditions that we had this summer?
So it was good. You definitely needed to. It was easy to stall out. If you wanted to get those longer hang 10s or cheater 5s, and then I even got a couple like a heel attempts. And I'm not really a hang heels guy, so I was definitely trying that. I've seen a couple other guys riding this board and wanted to, progress my surfing and take it to the next level. So I feel like this is a good board, for that intermediate level to try to maybe take it to that next step. I was trying to do so myself, pushing my nose riding ability. So yeah, I think it really did. It stalled out well, got back into the wave well, where you're not working too hard from the nose back into the curve of the wave. So yeah, it was a nice blend of, like I said, it's a, kind of a piggier, wide point back, narrower nose, almost kind of a blunt on the nose, which I see kind of maybe a trend nowadays in some of the more modern longboards where they're kind of rounding out that nose that's narrower. And it seems to work for nose riding.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, looking at it, there's a very slight concave, but there's also quite a bit of lift, like in the nose, right? Like a little bit of rocker up front. They're saying that, that's going to help you, like in nose riding, like a little bit more lift like that.
Yeah,
keep the nose out of the water.
Yeah. So catches waves, fast paddling, really glidey, and then when you want to stall it out and get a clean nose ride, you got just enough concave in there to kind of help you out. It's got like a 60-40 or 50-50 rail on the side.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of roll coming off the bottom, like all the way up through the nose. And actually, when you get up to the nose, it's really coming off the bottom. It's almost straight on the deck.
Yeah.
And really coming off the bottom. Obviously, like with Bing, then they have some beautiful stringers, like darkwood stringers.
It's a gorgeous board. Yeah. So, like I said, it is kind of thinned out, but it does have the right amount of weight with this thick stringer.
Yep.
I feel like there's that certain balance. You don't want a board that's too light. Like a windier condition, this is a great board too. If it's winds over 15 miles an hour, offshore, you need something to penetrate through the wind
to get into it.
Yeah, or else you get held up at the top and you're missing waves, or you're getting held up too high in the line. So
looking at the tail, Cody, the tail looks pretty pulled in as well. There's a lot of outline curve in here to like kind of reduced tail block.
Yeah,
squash.
Pulled in tail. You can see the fin that's designed for this board is kind of raked back. It has a nice, subtle rake, and I think that is designed for that tail because, once you pop on that fin box, you put your back foot there, the board really, wants to pivot and turn. So
yeah, and I think flatter rocker through the board going to give you more glide, like in those softer conditions, like what we had this summer. Because it didn't. This summer it didn't matter if it was like 1 foot or 5 or 6 foot. It was always soft.
Same kind of soft wave.
Yeah. And you would look at it, you'd be like, oh, I could ride a shortboard, no problem. You go out and ride a shortboard, it's like, bah,
and wear yourself out.
Yeah, and then the longboard was always feeling good, even in the bigger stuff. But looking, flatter rocker for those softer waves, and then you're going to get the turning. Like if you look at all this rail curve right in here, you're going to get all that turning from there by stepping back onto the tail. And then I would assume the decent amount of flex in that fin as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Right up my alley. And no hard edge on the back, so he just kind of keeps it it almost goes hard on that very tip, but almost like kind of like a pulled in squash.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, so what about, I think you touched on it a little bit, but like we always talk about accessibility, right? So like this board, the target is intermediate and above in longboarding, like kind of really maxing out your longboard surfing and style and nose riding. Where could you get into this board at a lower ability level and actually have it be the right choice?
I think the fact that it's just such a good glider and wave catcher, and in gutless surf or small to like medium surf, it's a wave catcher, you know what I mean? And if it's windy, if it's offshore, you're not losing your line as easy as like an epoxy board. It's a poly board. It's going through windier conditions, and if there's ripples in the wave, you're not losing your cut back.
Okay.
So I feel like it's a really smooth board and a good one to transition if you want to start nose riding, cross stepping more. This is a good board for that.
Yeah, and I would say the pigs, like wide point back in general, always seems to catch waves easier.
Yeah.
Just because you've got so much more volume in the back of the board, and when the wave is picking you up and pushing you into the wave, like having more volume in the back of the board seems to help.
Yeah,
it also seems to help
project.
Like you get like a squirt off the takeoff that you don't have like in wide point forward.
Yeah.
So that seems to help, like as far as like upping. I think that's where the accessibility comes in. Like, I mean, who's not going to want to catch more waves?
Right.
Or enter into the wave with more speed?
Yeah, and even if you're not nose riding, that narrower nose I feel is less likely to catch on any kind of like windy or bump in the wave.
Yeah.
So that's going to help you ride longer waves, catch more waves, and utilize that whole wave.
Exactly. Yeah.
Essential.
What I found on the pig longboards, especially riding them here, like where our wave has like a lot of shape.
Right.
Like when you have that wide point back, it makes the nose. Typically the noses are narrower. That catches less wind coming up the face, but also like when you're turning the board into the wave, like you're less likely to actually catch the nose.
Yeah.
And like pole vault over the front. So
absolutely.
From an accessibility standpoint, I think that's important to note as well. If you have if you are having a problem getting tripped up by the nose, the other thing I would say, in recommending this to someone who might not know if it's the right board or not, is that you got to keep in mind like how leaned out it is, right?
Yeah.
So think about that like in the sizing, because if it is lean for its length, like you want to factor that into getting the right size.
I think he keeps them all the different sizes. He stretches them out, but he doesn't really increase the volume or dimensions a whole lot.
Okay.
If you look online on Bing Surfboard's website or just Google the Bing Derringer model, you'll see the different models and check the DEMs, and they're pretty close to each other.
Okay.
That's why I ended up going with the 9.6.
Exactly.
It wasn't too far off a 9.4, what I was typically riding.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to use it for a stretched out point break or a longer longboard wave.
Right.
So.
Right. And actually the naming of the model's got a cool backstory to it as well, right? So this is Miguel Sinclair's pro model, and I guess his dad had a pro model with Hansen surfboards, and the pro model name was the Derringer.
Yeah.
And so that's cool that he like kind of brought that down.
Carried that on. Yeah, that's
family, a little bit of family history there. Hey, Cody, thank you so much for joining us for the Bing Derringer review. If any of you out there have any questions on the Bing Derringer or any other Bing surfboards, or would like to place an order, you can always reach us at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.